The other day I did a couple of splits, so I'm coming out here just to observe. I'm not going to break open the hives or anything. I'm just going to stand outside and observe the activity on the front door opening for the hives to see what is going on, what behaviors I can observe, so stay tuned. Hello, welcome back to Pine Meadows Hobby Farm. I'm your host, Jerry Hansen. Back in the bee yard, I just wanted to come out and do some observations from a distance and just watch the behavior of the bees, see how much activity is in front of each hive, and just an overall sense of what's going on. Now, this red hive on the end, that last week they were overcrowded. So I added another super to the top of them, but as I was doing a full hive inspection, I found 6 queen cells. So that was a sign that they wanted to swarm because they were overcrowded. So I went ahead and took 4 frames, and that'd be 4 queen cells and some brood and food, and then moved them to the blue hive and the white hive. So these are smaller bee colonies because I did split them. They didn't have a queen yet, but they did each have 2 queen cells. But the one down on the end, I put that other brood chamber on top, giving them more room. Plus I put some empty frames in there because I replaced the frames I took out with empty frames. So hopefully it took away from their instinct to want to swarm. We'll see how it's going to happen. Now, from what I understand, when you have 2 queen cells in a hive, one queen will hatch. The first one will hatch. She'll go through and she'll look for another queen cell. When she finds it and the queen's still in there, she's going to break that open. She's going to kill the queen that's inside of there. But she hadn't quite had her maiden flight or her flight to go out and get fertilized yet. But once she does, she'll come out of the hive. As we see some of these bees there, it looks like some of the brood actually hatched. They'll come out, they'll turn around the face of the hive, they'll look around the hive, they'll fly around and get farther and farther away from the hive, and then that's their maiden flight or their orientation flight. That's what they're orienting themselves to, what home looks like by sight. And then they'll look around the surrounding areas to see where home is. Then that bee will become a forager. They'll start going out and foraging. So I'm seeing a lot of that behavior with these 2 hives. If you look carefully, you'll see a bee come out and she'll turn around, she'll look, like that one. She'll turn around and she'll look and fly around, investigate the opening, and then she'll fly away. There's one right there. Couple of them. So there's a lot of brood that has hatched and they've developed into worker bees. Now some of these bees are foragers. They're just returning right to the hive. They're bringing back food and they're bringing back pollen and nectar and sometimes sap. The sap they'll turn into propolis, which is that really dark brown, reddish brown, sticky stuff that they use to fill in the gaps of the hives. These are fascinating creatures to learn about. You can tell that there's been a lot of activity here because you can see the black spots just outside the door. That's from the bees coming out and going to the bathroom. That is bee poop. This hive looks like it's recovered quite well. It's got a lot of traffic going in and out. I don't want to break open the hives and do an inspection for another 2 weeks. July 1st is when I want to do that. That gives plenty of time for the queen to go ahead and hatch, go out and do her reproductive flight, come back, her mating flight, come back and start laying eggs. And that way I can do a full inspection on these hives to make sure that they do have a viable queen in there and she is doing what she's supposed to be doing, and she's making new bees, which gives me 4 full hives. Now with a little bit of hands-on experience, I'm getting more acclimated to beekeeping and becoming more and more comfortable with it and being able to recognize what's going on with bees. And as I go along, I'll just share with you guys my adventures and my triumphs and my tragedies going on here at the homestead. But now I know a method to artificially cause bees to feel like they need to swarm and create a bunch of queen cells so I can create more queens and split more hives. Therefore, I can make what they call nukes. A nuke is a small box just like what you got here, except it holds 5 frames. One frame has, they have a couple frames of brood and nectar and honey. They got a queen in there, and they got a lot of worker bees in there. So it's a colony ready to go, and I can actually make those and sell those and start making money and recoup what my investments I have on the bee keeping. Also, when I start collecting honey, I can start selling my honey and getting some money that way to help recoup my costs. I still have to go online and purchase a spinner, a centrifuge, it's also called a honey extractor. I'm thinking of just getting a hand crank one because I'm in no means a big operation. So a hand crank one would suit me just fine. And I'll show you my method that I was taught by my mentor on choosing the honey frames. Instead of pulling the whole honey box off, I'll just pull the full frames off and spin those as they fill them up. We'll do that when the time comes. I tell you what, last year when I extracted honey, it was a royal mess. It was a mess. I didn't have the right equipment. I had a knife and I had a gun. Okay? You use your imagination. I made a huge mess, but I got a lot of honey. So I'm happy with what I see. I see a lot of activity. It looks like possibly I have 2 successful what they call walk-away splits. I'm your host, Jerry Hansen. This is Pine Meadows Hobby Farm. I want to thank you guys for joining me. Please give me a thumbs up and like my channel. That really helps out the channel because it gives YouTube the idea to promote our videos. Also, click that bell icon and subscribe. That will alert you to new videos as I upload them. Smash that share button and share my videos on your social media platforms. Helps us out a lot. We'll see you guys in the next adventure. Bye-bye. Wildlife abounds. There's a turkey. And over there under the barn is a deer. See that? The turkey and the deer, that's what frequents our homestead.